Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is all what you need to know about the prokaryotes on only one page. Okay, the prokaryotes are classified as a group of living things. Look, all the living things are classified into three groups. We call them three domains. Domain bacteria includes bacteria. Domain archaea includes only archaea, and the domain eukarya. Eukaryotes are animals, plants, fungi, and the protists. Okay. In this lesson, we are studying the prokaryotes only. So, as we see here, we can see that the prokaryotes, including bacteria and archaea. What are prokaryotes? They are organisms whose cells do not have a nucleus. Okay. Bacteria and archaea are prokaryotes, and as you see in this picture, the cell contains a non-nucleus. The DNA is found in the cytoplasm. Okay, this is the meaning of the word prokaryotes. Then we are speaking about the bacterial cell structure. As you see also here, it contains outer membrane. Some kinds of bacteria contains outer membrane that is followed by a cell wall made up of a substance called peptidoglycan. Okay, peptidoglycan is the substance used for making the cell wall of bacteria. Then the cell membrane. You can see the DNA is found in the nucleus without, is found in the cytoplasm without being surrounded by a nucleus. And there are ribosomes, those dark points. What we focus on is the cell wall made up of peptidoglycan, the outer membrane that is found in some kinds of bacteria. The flagella, this long tail, is used for movement, and those hair-like structures found on the surface of bacteria are called pili. Okay, these are used for attachment to allow the bacteria to attach to some surfaces and attach to other bacteria. The next thing we are speaking about is the shapes of bacteria. We can see the bacteria has three major shapes, as you see here. Spherical shape, we call it cocci. Rod shape, we call it bacilli. And the spiral shape, we call it spirilla. Okay, so those are the three types or the three shapes of bacteria: bacilli, rod shape; cocci, sphere shape; and spirilla, spiral shape. Now to bacteria. When you think about bacteria, you think that bacteria are harmful creatures, but actually not all bacteria are harmful. Some, it depends how they obtain their food. Some of them, they make their own food like plants by using photolight. Autotrophs, it means they make their own food. Autotrophs are organisms that make their own food by using the photo here. So some bacteria are photoautotrophs. They make photosynthesis by using light like plants. Okay. Some kinds of bacteria depend on chemical reactions, like those bacteria living in the ocean away from the sunlight. They depend on some chemical reactions that happen in the ocean floor. Okay. They depend on some chemical reaction to make food. So they make food, we call them autotrophs. And they get the energy, instead of using light, they use chemical reactions. So we say that they are chemoautotrophs. Okay. Some other bacteria you see here, heterotrophs. These like the bacteria that cause diseases. They can't make their own food, so they can infect you. Some other bacteria are decomposers. They live on the decaying materials. They cannot make their own food. We call them heterotrophs. Heterotrophic bacteria, they take in organic molecules from the surroundings and they break them down. Okay, so we have photoautotrophs, make food by using photo or light. Chemoautotrophs, they make food by using energy from some chemical reactions. We have heterotrophs. They can't make food, so they take in organic molecules and they break them down. And we have photoheterotrophs. They can make photosynthesis if it's available, and also they can process organic compounds like the heterotrophs. So it's something like a combination between the photoautotrophs and the heterotrophs. We call them photoheterotrophs. Okay. Now to the next point, how do bacteria reproduce or make other kinds of bacteria? We have two ways here. The first way, bacteria makes something called a binary fission. Bi means two. Fission means splitting. So it means splitting into two. The bacteria replicate the DNA, okay? And then first the bacteria grow in size, then replicate its DNA, then split into two identical bacteria. Okay, this is called the binary fission. So prokaryotes like bacteria grow to double its size, then replicate their DNA, then divide in half, producing two identical daughter cells. So here we produced a new bacteria, two identical new bacteria. There is another way of reproduction, but actually it doesn't produce new bacteria, but it produces new traits in the bacteria. This is called the conjugation, okay? Conjugation, when one bacterial cell, it has here like plasmid, like extra DNA with some extra characteristics, okay? It forms conjugation tube here, and it copies its plasmid and sends a copy of the plasmid to the other bacteria. Now, bacteria has passed a copy of its DNA, this plasmid, to another kind of bacterial cells. This is called the conjugation, okay? When a hollow bridge, this bridge is formed between two bacterial cells, and the bacteria move genes from one bacterial cell to the other, okay? So again, prokaryotes are organisms that their cells, they do not have nucleus like bacteria and archaea. We saw the bacterial cell structure. It has cell wall made up of peptidoglycan, outer membrane that is found in some kinds of bacteria, flagella that is used for movement, and villi, those small hairs used for attachment to surfaces and other bacteria. The shapes of bacteria are bacilli, rod shape, cocci, spherical shape, and spirilla, spiral shape. How they obtain food? Photoautotrophs make food by photo, light. Chemoautotrophs make food by chemical reactions. Heterotrophs can't make their own food, so they take in organic molecules and then break them down. Photoheterotrophs, it's like combination between photoautotrophs and heterotrophs. They can make photosynthesis and also process organic matter. Reproduction by binary fission, when the cell grows to double its size, then copy its DNA, then divide into two daughter cells. And conjugation is a way of reproduction when a hollow bridge is formed between two bacteria and genes move from one to the other, okay? Now to the archaea, all what you need to know about the archaea is that archaea also are prokaryotes. This is how the archaea is similar to bacteria. It's a kind of prokaryotic organisms also without nucleus, and it have cell wall also like bacteria. But archaea different from bacteria, and the part of cell wall, the cell wall of archaea is made up of a different substance that you do not need to know. The DNA also of, you can think that archaea is similar to bacteria, but actually the DNA of archaea is more like the eukaryotes. Remember with me, the eukaryotes like the animals and the plants here. So the archaea DNA is more similar to eukaryotes than to bacteria. So if I asked you, how is archaea similar to bacteria? It's a prokaryote without nucleus, and it has cell wall like bacteria. But what are some differences between archaea and bacteria? Archaea have cell wall made up of different substances from bacteria, and also the DNA of archaea is similar to the DNA of eukaryotes. Now the types of archaea, remember, we are almost done, okay? The types of archaea live in extreme places, three types. They live in high salt like the Dead Sea, Shabab, okay? The archaea live in places with very high salt concentration, very high temperature like the hot springs, okay? And in the swamps without oxygen in presence of methane gas. So three types of archaea, those live in high salt, those live in high temperature, and those live in swamps with high methane gas level, okay? Now we have finished all what you need to know about the bacteria, the types of bacteria, how they obtain food, how they reproduce, the types of archaea and the structure of archaea, how the bacteria similar to archaea and how the archaea different from bacteria. And the next part is very easy. What is the role of bacteria in our life? Some bacteria act as decomposers because they digest the dead tissue. When something is dead, an apple is left on the table, the bacteria will come, digest this dead apple, okay, break it down into raw materials, okay, and also in the nature, when something is dead and left in the soil, the bacteria digest it, break it, and these raw materials, after being broken by the bacteria, will be released back in the soil to the environment. So bacteria as decomposers, like recycling the dead organisms, okay? It allows the plant to use the dead organisms or the material in the dead organism's body, okay? Also, some kinds are producers, as we say here, photoautotrophs and chemoautotrophs, bacteria that can make their own food, and they do not make food for themselves only, like plants also make food for all the organisms on Earth. Bacteria work or act as a producer. They are photosynthetic. Photosynthetic bacteria can make food, especially in the open ocean. Huge amount of bacteria can make huge amount of food in the ocean, especially. The last type of, or the last benefit here that is very important, nitrogen fixing bacteria. The nitrogen is, look, it's like the nitrogen is present in the air, but the plant cannot get this nitrogen, okay? The plant can get the nitrogen from the soil, So some kinds of bacteria that live in the soil here at the roots of some plants fix the nitrogen from the air into the soil and allow the plant to get this nitrogen. This is very important, okay? So nitrogen fixing bacteria are symbiotic. They live in a relationship that helps the plant. They are symbiotic, okay? They live in a symbiotic relationship at the plant roots. They fix the nitrogen gas from the air into the nitrogenous compounds in the soil, where the plant can absorb these nitrogenous compounds. These nitrogenous compounds are very important for the plant to make proteins. And we all need proteins. So we all need proteins, including the plants, okay? So the plants absorb the nitrogenous compounds from the soil to make proteins, and the nitrogen fixing bacteria help the plant to absorb the nitrogenous compounds and make proteins. Some general uses of bacteria: we use the bacteria for making food such as yogurt. We put bacteria on the yogurt, so on the milk, so it turns into yogurt, okay? Some bacteria are used to make drugs like antibiotics, okay, and chemicals. And some bacteria are used to clean up the waste, like in the ocean when oil ship sink in the ocean. Some bacteria could be used to clean the oil spills in the ocean. They put bacteria that is able to break down this oil into harmless substances, so we can clear the oceans by using some kinds of bacteria, okay? That's it. So it's a very short and easy lesson.